How's it going, everybody? So I am working on a 90s resto mod here. This is the Special Sauce Dirt Nerd. This is an early 90s specialized hard rock that I stripped down and repainted with some reimagined graphics. Now the stock headset that was on here was pretty much toast. It was all rusted out and kind of indexed. It was just in really bad shape. So in this video, I'll explain how to size up and purchase a new headset for an older vintage bike that uses a 1-inch threaded system. Now the process is actually relatively straightforward. There's just a few key measurements that you have to take, and in order to take those measurements, the recommended tool is a digital caliper. This tool makes measuring outer diameters and inner diameters of circular components really easy and accurate. So the first thing you want to do is actually grab the fork with the crown race removed. And on these older forks, you can see that there's this little lip here, which is slightly larger in diameter than the steerer itself. That's where the interference fit between the fork and the crown race occurs. So we're going to go ahead and take that measurement, just placing the calipers around the base of the fork crown area. And the measurement here is 27.04 millimeters. Now it's likely that the fork crown measurement will be about 27 millimeters, which is what I measured, or it's going to be around 26.4 millimeters, which is really close, which is why you need those calipers to get an accurate measurement. Now if your fork crown diameter does measure 26.4-ish millimeters, then you've got what's called an ISO standard headset. Whereas in my case, I measured 27 millimeters, plus or minus 0.04 millimeters. And that's an indication that we have a JIS, or Japanese standard headset. So I'm just going to go ahead and jot that number down. Okay, so the next measurement that we want to take is actually the inner diameter of the head tube of the frame itself. Okay, so for this, you're going to want to use the inner calipers, which are on the back side of the tool. Now in our case here, I'm measuring 30.02 millimeters for the inner diameter of the head tube. That also is consistent with the fact that this is a JIS standard headset. If the measurement were slightly wider at around 30.2 millimeters, again, a very small difference, then it's more likely that you've got an ISO standard headset. All right, and then the next measurement we want to take is the actual fork steer tube. We want the outer diameter as well as the inner diameter of the fork steerer, which is where the stem inserts. My outer diameter here is 25.39, roughly 25.4 millimeters. Then I'll go ahead and grab the inner diameter, which is 22.02 millimeters. So that's the inner diameter of the top of the fork steer. Now this combination of numbers is indicative that we have either an ISO or a JIS standard headset. Now if these measurements at the top of the fork steer had been slightly smaller, 25 millimeters for the outer diameter and 22 millimeters for the inner diameter, that's actually an indication that we would have a less common French style headset. So the fact that we have the larger numbers, 25.4 and 22.2, that is consistent with a JIS or an ISO standard. And then the last couple of measurements we need to take are so that we can figure out the maximum stack height for the replacement headset. Now there's a couple of ways you can do this. The first is to subtract two numbers, one of which would be the entire length of the steer tube to the bottom of the crown race. Okay, so that measurement is 123.4 millimeters. And then I also want to get the overall height of the head tube on the frame. So 123.4. I'm going to go ahead and subtract from that the overall height of the head tube, which is 87.9 millimeters. So that's the height of the head tube, which gives me a difference of the two of 35.5 millimeters. Is essentially the maximum stack height headset that I could buy. Otherwise, there's not enough fork steerer for all of the headset bits to thread onto. So for a while, I actually had my eye on this Velo Orange 1-inch headset. It's a JIS, it's $32, it's silver, but the issue is that the stack height is 41 millimeters. So the fact that my measurement here of 35.8 is 5.2 millimeters less than the stack height of that Velo Orange headset, I'm pretty confident that that's actually not going to work. Sometimes if you're within 1 or 2 millimeters, you can just take out one of the headset spacers and it'll fit. In my case here, I'm over 5 millimeters off, so I just don't think that headset's going to work. I did, however, find this headset here from Soma Fab. This is a Tange Seiki Passage 1-inch threaded JIS headset. It's got 30 millimeter JIS cups, it's got a 27 millimeter race, it's chrome plated, and it has a stack height of 30.3 millimeters, which is what I was looking for here. The fact that 30.3 stated stack height of the headset is less then the 35.8 millimeter measurement that I took here means that this headset will in fact work. Relatively affordable, it's only 22 bucks. So I'm gonna go ahead and order it now, and then we'll just install it when it arrives. All right, so it's been a few days and this came in the mail. This is the Tangeseki Passage 1-inch threaded low stack JIS chrome finish headset. That's actually just the top cup right there. Very low profile. Bearing race sits on top of that, and then the dust cover and spacers sit on top of that. So it's really low profile. That's why this one has a low stack of, what was it, 30 something millimeters? Okay, so we just need to press these cups in. Grab the headset press. Now, some people don't do this, but I've always been in the habit of just putting a thin layer of grease on the crown race. All right, so then we're gonna just drop the race down on top. Won't go all the way by hand, which is why we have a little crown race setter. Just making sure it's flush all the way around. Yeah. So it should look like this when it's installed. Again, we're going to be pressing in cups, metal on metal, so just going to put a layer of grease in here. Typically, best practice is to press the cups in one at a time. And we're just going to get everything squared up. All right, it's looking pretty good. And we'll just press the cups in. Just making sure we inspect it all the way around and make sure it's flush. Now these headsets for these older frames, these are always a cage of ball bearings like this, and they come dry. So you do want to grease the ball bearings up. A little tricky to see, but there is some grease packed into that cage there. That's going to sit on top of here like so. And of course the actual threaded headset part, these threads are dry as well. Not a bad idea to grease those up a little bit. Alright, so then when you're ready, fork and the lower bearings come up. Sit there in place. Dust cap, bearing, and then the upper cup threads on. This is of course why it's called a threaded headset. There we are. Now if we did this correctly, because the stack is low, there's plenty of thread left above the headset for the lock ring to screw onto. In my case here, we're actually a little bit short. In other words, there's too much steer tube exposed, which is fine. That just means you need a few extra these threaded headset spacers. Yeah, so we're probably going to need just a couple additional threaded headset spacers. Again, that's what we wanted. If we got one of the headsets with the stack that was too high, there wouldn't have been enough exposed threaded steerer for the upper lock nut to screw on. Okay, so there you go. That's how you size up a 1-inch threaded headset for an older vintage bike. Again, there was kind of a lot of variety of headsets around that era. So especially when you're sizing headsets for an older vintage bike, it's important to know which measurements to take so you can buy the correct headset. This video wasn't really meant to be like a how to install the headset video, more just like how to size one so that you can buy the right one. If you're curious about how to actually set up one of these headsets, including getting the right amount of preload, just drop a comment down below. If there's enough interest, I can do one of those videos as well. But that's going to do it for this one. I'll definitely have a few more videos of this project over the next few weeks. Thanks again for watching. Thanks for subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. We'll see you next time.